very exciting. We've got quorum, as you can see by these lovely faces. First thing we're going to do is, for those of you that were not here in our last meeting, which was back in July, we did not have quorum at the time, or June, actually. We did not have quorum at the time, so we need to approve our May minutes. Yes, which are here, not here. Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, so we need to approve those. So if we can get a motion for that. Great. Can I get a second? Thank you, Marcus. Anyone against or abstaining? Fabulous. So that motion so moves. And then I'm going to move on to, I'm going fast in my turbo way because we have a lot on this agenda. So just let me know if I'm going too fast. Financial update. It's,
No, we don't have one. And that we just finished closing out the year end and the start, so nothing has changed.
Okay, great. And we didn't get the money that we requested.
No. And as I said in the previous meetings, no, we did not get any of the money.
It's always important to me for us to reiterate that we did not get that money. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff on new business. Some of it's just updating the commission, and then some of it's a broader conversation, I think. But I'm going to let staff take it from here and update us.
Okay, the first two items I'm filling in for Mark, who's been the quarterback on these two. MHRC was part of a group that brought together a collection of community organizations that deal in people in food disparity. Part of that was, and I think I explained this to us before, part of that was to find out and to study where the gaps are and to see if those organizations can figure out a way to close those gaps, since they're all working on the same thing. So we were part of assisting them to get a roughly $700,000 grant that was awarded to them to begin this process. And so all of that has been set up, and they are preparing to begin to start to do their work. Again, as I said before, I think this is a place where MHRC can help facilitate community groups toward larger issues. We have no operational role in this. We have no attachment to the funds in this, but we were asked to, but we walked them through the process, and we also testified in the committee that was doling out the remaining American Rescue funds that the city, through the council, awarded to this feedback project. The next one's Town Hall Pass. Town Hall Pass, we had, again, this is a partnership with a coalition of community organizations, but the primary one being the Center for Nonprofit Management, to create a centralized place for like-minded organizations to post, promote their events. I forget the date. When were we over at Community? Last Monday. Yes, that was the date. That was the kickoff of the Town Hall Pass. It is up to speed. We'll be joining it also, and we'll also be promoting it, in that there are often events that happen that other organizations don't know about, and there are organizations who are actually working on the same things that sometimes them working together or knowing that somebody else is doing it can create segues for joint partnerships. These are two things that we're particularly proud of, in that we saw them from the beginning to fruition, and it adds nothing on us as we have to take on an operational part or anything, but we were the principals in moving these things forward and getting them done. Any questions?
Excellent. And we have another commissioner joining us. So I'll allow her to get some time to come in. I just want to say the two great things about these two projects is that it highlights our role in being a trustworthy partner for a lot of organizations to bring a large breadth of organizations together. Not many groups can do that. And so I commend the team for being able to corral sometimes not the most like-minded groups into a space. So I think that's excellent. And thank you for spending time on that. I know nothing about the executive committee nominations process. Mark typically does. I don't know who wants to speak to this.
I'm pulling it up now.
I think my marching orders was that, oh God, I don't remember. Somebody was the head of the nominations committee. Was it? No, you weren't there. Was it you? Charles, yes, thank you. Charles is the head, thank you, Erwin. Charles is the head of the nominations committee, and commissioners should submit to him the nominations they have for the executive committee, I believe. And then we will have a vote on that at the next meeting, I believe. So to tell you what the roles are, there's chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, yes. Two vice chairs, thank you. So currently I am chair, Pratik is vice chair, Ben is secretary, and treasurer, thank you, and Erwin. Charles is the other vice chair. He rolls off in April, yes. Yeah, in terms of terms, the rest of us all still have a term. Yeah. So thank you for asking. So I think that's just, if you want to put your name in the hat, or if you want to put someone else's name in the hat, do that through the staff, and Charles will handle it, because you actually can't message Charles directly. So you can message, yes, Crystal. Excellent. Is that clear? That very murky description, is that crystal clear? Okay, great.
Would you like for me to read this section?
That'd be great. Thank you, Davey.
Each officer of the commission shall be elected to serve for a term of 1 year. Commission officers may be reelected on a year-to-year basis, provided that no executive board member shall serve longer than 2 years in the same position on the executive board. In order to serve as chair of the commission, an individual must have served on the commission for a period of 1 year. The vote for officers shall occur in June. We've missed that in that we didn't have a meeting of each year after the nominating committee submits its final recommendations to the commission. Each officer's term, once it commits following the commission's election in June. If an officer's appointed term on the commission itself ends before his or her term as an officer is set to end, the chair or the person performing the chair's duties under the successions provisions in Article 6, Section 2, shall appoint a replacement until such time as the next regularly held election occurs. Regardless of its length, such a replacement term does not count as a full term for purposes of applying for the 2-year term limit set forth in this paragraph.
Do we know how many of the existing members of the executive committee had held their position for more than 2 terms?
I have been in the position of chair for 2 terms, I believe.
Yes.
So
Well, one and a portion.
one and a portion because, exactly, because the executive director left and Davey was our chair and he left to be able to compete for the position.
And so in reading this, and we got our legal guy here, it says, it talks about Section 2 shall appoint a replacement until such time as the next regularly held election occurs. Regardless of its length, such a replacement term does not count as a full year for purposes of applying to a 2-year term limit. So the way in which I read this, you've only served 1 full term. Is that not correct?
So to say that Mariam is still eligible.
Yes, she's still eligible.
So we are behind, so let's get those nominations in and we can do that all at the next meeting. Great. Okay, new administration engagement plan. So exciting, hopefully.
Okay, so do I need to put some filler in right here? Okay, here's the filler. So then, as we turn those in, send those to Crystal so that the nominating committee will have those who are interested in running and assuming offices so that the next meeting we can actually vote to fill those positions.
Great.
I still need more filler, huh?
Do you want to go to the next thing and then we'll
I'm
come
a
back
Baptist
up?
preacher. I could sing. No, okay.
We've definitely had a
Okay,
quorum.
so
Thank
that
you.
was definitely meant as a joke. Okay.
I could sing. We can go to the next thing if you want.
Okay. Just a update on this ethics complaint that was filed by our chair as a individual that MHRC has done in the past and support individuals in the processes. The Metro Legal has issued a decision that that the ethics board is not the place for this issue. And they go on to exert that there are some First Amendment concerns that they have.
What? I want to give a little context. I think
Okay.
not everybody maybe knows
Well,
what we're
then you
talking
go
about.
ahead.
Okay. So if y'all remember at the last meeting, I believe it was the last one, we spoke about, actually, it could have been an XCOM meeting. Anyways, there was an instance of the benefits board. This has been something the commission's been working on for years. It's been happening since I joined, where the benefits board, Metro Benefits Board, gets to vote on the benefits that Metro employees get. And for 2 years in a row, they have voted no for specific trans healthcare. Not so specifically on surgeries and that kind of care. The first year we had a commissioner there who's an outspoken leader in this area. We had our ED there. This year, the commission was there. Davey spoke. Other members of staff spoke. And then there was a whole lot of other testimonies, really organized to sort of really say, please give us this right. And the benefits board decided against it again. Prior to doing that, there was 2 statements made that, in my opinion, as an individual, as a human being, I found, shocking. One was about we could recruit other people other than trans people, and then we wouldn't have this problem. And the other statement was that one of the benefits board members said that her God does not make mistakes, and therefore she will vote no. So as an individual, I filed a complaint and an ethics complaint, and that was recently dismissed by the legal department as not being ethical, there not being enough grounds for that. It's still on the agenda for August 25th, and I'll show up just to see what happens, but it will not move forward. But it's still very important to me and obviously other members of this commission and obviously Metro employees that need this care. So that's the overall context of it. I don't know if there's any questions, or Davey, you want to add anything else about it?
Well, no, just to add emphasis that the commission has been an advocate for this issue since it first came up. Actually, the previous chair, Dr. Marissa Richmond, was the person who spoke last year at the benefits board. I also think that there was a vote that the commission had at that time to support the transgender care for all Metro employees.
I just have a quick question of, could we possibly get an email of just who's on that board? If we could just get sent that, that would be very helpful.
I was wondering, would this be something that could be resolved like through legislative action, like through council, or does it have to go, like, does this decision have to be by that board specifically?
As I understand now, and again, the legal guy can clear me up if I say something wrong. As it stands now, the way things are set up, it would take an ordinance to change things to where that can happen. So no, it stays with the benefits board, and it's up to the benefits board to make that decision, short council taking some type of action to change how things are done right now.
And the
Thank you.
composition.
That's kind of like an amen. I appreciate that.
That's like an amen. Hi, Charles. The composition of the benefits board is also interesting and varied in that way. Like some are voted in, some are appointed. Yeah, MMPD appoints one, fire appoints one, mayor appoints 2 to 3, and then employees elect a few of them. So this is from a mix of that kind of mix. So
I think for the request of email, just who's on the board, just if we could have appointed or elected, that would be very helpful. I don't want to put more work on the plate, but
No,
just
but they
knowing
actually
the distinction.
listed showing what type member they are.
yeah,
So
I think
that's
just
no
knowing the
problem.
distinction will be helpful.
did somebody, okay. Hi, Charles. You missed the nominations conversation, but I told everyone to, through staff, let you know who they want to nominate. Because you're the nominations chair. Look at him smiling. Okay, great. We're moving forward. I love doing that to him. Okay. Can we go to this thing now? Yes, she's smiling. New administration updated plan. Welcome, Charles.
There we go. Is that the right thing? Okay. I'm so short, I can't really clear the laptop. Let me know if you can't hear me. So on the screen behind you, and apologies, I do not have a printed copy of this, but as you know, we've been going through a pretty lengthy strategic planning process, thinking about the year ahead and thinking about, the next few years. What do we want to say we've been able to accomplish as an agency, as a commission, now that we're fully staffed up with our full team of 6 staff members. So what I've got today is just a little preview of how we're sort of organizing that information. Would love to know, if it makes sense to you, how we talk about it, if it makes sense to you, what we're doing, what we are planning to work on. Is anything a surprise? All of these things you'll have heard us talk about before, but this is kind of to put it all together in a package. And so just real quick before I go into the slides, this is really what I'm presenting, our roadmap for the next year. So we've identified the priority projects that we're going to work on. And this is something that we're going to use as context to share with the new council members, with the new mayoral administration, and with any other changes that we see as we prepare as a city for this leadership change. So really as a starting point to develop those relationships. And so we start by trying to give some context about what is the Human Relations Commission. Some people who are coming into these roles may not have worked with us before or heard of us before. We're often confused with HR, and I always say, no, it's the other HR. So we do that by identifying some of our strategic impact areas. And we've identified 6 of them. These are 6 areas that we have worked on specific, concrete, tangible projects in the past, in addition to this year. So we might not be working on something around housing and tenant advocacy, for example, but we've got a history of doing projects there. So this is how we want to introduce ourselves. So our 6 strategic impact areas is equity in Metro. So things that are internal to the functions of Metro, whether that's what happens in departments, in our workforce, how policy is made, processes, resources, how those decisions get made. Our second area is equity in Nashville. So we're involved in a lot of community partnerships, a lot of events, a lot of projects. We've talked about some of those today already. So that's sort of the bigger external to Metro government. Our third one is reimagining public safety. And so a historic charge of human relations commissions across the country is this mandate to help improve community police relations. And how do we broaden that to think about reimagining public safety? Of course, in the past, we've done our public hearings, we've done the mobile diversity seminars. So again, we've got a good track record of working on this as a commission. Next, we have Title VI compliance. Of course, this is our flagship charge by charter that we help Metro maintain compliance across services and within our workforce. Housing and tenant advocacy is another impact area. In the past, we've done our eviction court watch, our public education booklets around affordable housing, and last, we have economic development and wages. So these are the 6 sort of lenses through which we describe the content of the work area that we do. And then we go on to describe what we're calling core service areas, and we've got 4 of them. So I'm just going to run through what they are and how we're formatting this. Yes.
If you back up one.
Am I going too fast?
Yeah, I just want to give the commissioners opportunity if there's any questions about these impact areas. All right. That's all. So you can move on. Nobody said that. So we're not going to.
Does that mean everybody agrees with these impact areas? That make sense to you, why we're working in them? Yes? Okay, great. Also, I just want to point out how many people are around this table right now. It's amazing. We've never had this before. Thank you very much.
Someone take a picture.
I know, take a picture.
It's on YouTube.
Kathy.
We've got a picture.
Thank you.
Great. So this is what we're doing. Next is how are we doing it? So 4 core service areas is what we're calling them. And so this is how we're formatting the report that we'll use in these introductory one-on-one meetings. So our first core service area is Title VI compliance. And so what we've done is we've just listed, bullet points of our ongoing routine activities in this area. So that's things like reading the complaints that get submitted on our website. That's things like providing the annual training that we do for HR coordinators in each department. So the predictable, everyday ongoing tasks. And then what we do is highlight 1 or 2 priority projects in this core service area. So what we as a staff are going to be working on in the year ahead is updating our language access plan. And so the last time that we did this as a commission was in 2017. We surveyed Metro departments, we did a community survey, and we did community conversations focus groups with community members and service providers around language access in Nashville, what we're doing all right, what we're not doing all right on, to make recommendations for resources, policy, programs, and that. So we haven't done that since 2017. We know it's important to update, and so we're planning right now, what does that look like? And we're definitely, balancing, we know we need to update the data, but we don't want to do a study that's going to take a year long before we can even take some action. And so we know that this is just such a huge area in Metro that needs a lot of attention. And so this is one of our top priority areas. And in the report, after we describe the priority, we just sort of tag what strategic impact area this fits in. So this crosses 3 of our areas: Title VI compliance, equity in Metro, equity in Nashville.
Can I ask a?
Yes.
Oh, nope, you're still going.
No, I've stopped.
My question about language access is it just spoken language, or does that include ASL and stuff like that too, out of curiosity?
Yes, it does include ASL.
Thank you.
And then this is a very general sort of timeline that we have created for each of our priority projects. And so this is just to give people a little preview of what they can expect, the basic steps, right? This isn't a work plan, but this is the timeline that we expect to move through it on. And we're using the budget year, so, July to June to structure these. So that's the basic structure that we're using for each core service area of what are the priorities that we're doing. So unless there's questions about compliance and language access being our priority, I'm gonna move on.
We're already 2 months behind.
No, we've been doing this work already. So I just, and this is all like super draft. I don't have printed copies for you because we're still writing it right now. And so you might see some typos or some bars that you think might be in other places, and they will be fixed if you see those errors.
It's important to note that this year is the 15th year anniversary of the English-only vote in Nashville. So it's not that long ago, and it's not that far, and that this is a critical area for the immigrant population in the city in all aspects, across all metro services, whether it's the library, whether it's planning and codes, whether it's the school system, that there are places that have better or not that much better language access, as far as our forms being made available in the 5 most spoken languages in Nashville, on down the list. So this definitely requires community partners and metro partners to be able to make any impact on the language access.
I was going to ask, there's currently a coalition of like organizations, local organizations that are, they're leading, I believe, like this Our State, Our Languages campaign. And so I was wondering if like you've reached out to them, talked to them.
Yeah, we're in Kathy, RJ, like we've got our work plan that we're developing right now. So like y'all are all definitely on that to like check in and like plan this, you know, with your input. For example, we met with the health department a couple of weeks ago because they've been part of regular convenings with several organizations that are working on language access already. So we are not trying to recreate any structures that already exist or any networks. We want to tap into networks instead of like building a parallel thing that's just more time and effort of people who are already, you know, working so hard on all these things. So we'll definitely be in touch. Yeah, thanks for asking that though.
On this current slide, it says TA with departments. I was just curious what that TA stood for.
So like technical assistance. So, you know, one resource that we have, for example, just to give a deep dive on this part, is that HR just recently, I think actually last week, released their summary of the questionnaire that departments have to fill out every year for how they are doing with Title VI, which includes questions like, do you have a language access plan in place? Do you train your staff on it? Yes or no? What, you know, other questions. And so we use that as a starting point to sort of identify departments that are putting on paper, yes, I want help with these things, to sort of, you know, we think about like the readiness level of different departments who are like, I'm ready, come provide me support and help me develop like policies and SOPs for our employees. So that's like the ongoing work that our staff is currently engaged in and doing. Okay. So that was core service number 1. Core service number 2 is our policy and our research work. Of course, some of these have overlap, right? I mean, putting together a report is a type of research in itself, but in our research and policy work, the priority areas that we have identified for this year is first, continuing to focus on boards and commissions and what is our role in helping, how do we describe this? How do we put words to this? Helping continue the work that we do of making sure that our boards and commissions that hold a lot of power in the city, make very important decisions, are diverse, have people who reflect various constituencies in Nashville, people who think about things like equity, inclusion, diversity in how they carry that work out. And so, you know, I'll just say we've been engaged with the benefit board, which we've already talked about in the meeting today. And so we've been really thinking about how do members find themselves on these boards? How do people come to those seats? What are those interview processes like that happen in a committee of the council? How can we help sort of continue to build what's the
To
word?
build awareness
Build awareness.
around the processes that they go through. Right now, council has one set of questions that everybody gets asked. And do you need to have, and the current chair is really open to the conversation. We've had a couple conversations with her, but there may need to be, and hopefully with the next administration, there may be a desire to try to concretize what this looks like. Yes, you got the general set of questions, but do there need to be some specific questions for benefit board members or to some other board or commission? What is the intentionality on behalf of the council, who is often the last gatekeeper on who ends up on Nashville's boards and commissions? As you know, there's been many publicly discussed placements on boards and commissions down through the years. So it is an unresolved issue that we're trying to see if we can't help facilitate something to make that more equitable process.
And I'll add, like, if we talk about boards that deal with the economic development of the city or plans or, these kind of things, the intersectionality of those decisions is often not captured in the meeting or in the vetting of the person, but they have a huge impact across all different kinds of people in the city. So we can't, here we are, the board that ensures diversity and inclusion, but if you don't sit on that board, you don't really get to ensure that. So having some way to both raise awareness, but also make sure, like, okay, yes, you understand about development, you understand about negotiations of great deals, or sidewalks, or, planning, but do you understand the unintended and intended consequences of those kinds of decisions? So I think, along the lines of all things, as our city grows and is more and more diverse, we have to act like it, in my opinion.
And particularly, not only all boards and commissions, but there are 11 now that, with the passage of the ordinance a few months ago, that a portion of the members, such as this, 7 of the members going forward will come from the community. So being able to educate the community around what should be the person that you suggest to be a member of the MHRC that will ultimately have to be confirmed by council. So 7 members of this commission going on, they have not worked out how that process will go of who gets the first pick, second pick, or how that goes. But we will begin receiving nominations from the committee. So whenever the dates and everything roll off, at some point in the future, that there'll be 7 community members elected to this board or appointed to this board, and then the remainder will still come from the mayor's office.
Are we aware of those community groups that have active recruitment processes in place for boards and commissions?
Yeah, so that's in our more detailed work plan, and it's going to connect with another priority area here on another slide. But, we're talking about doing like a convening this fall of groups in the city that are working on this. I think folks might be familiar with Stand Up Nashville's board and commission training program. I'm forgetting the exact name that they call it, but where they go through like a training that, really prepares you to serve on these boards and commissions that you meet eligibility requirements for. So that's definitely something that we want to get all those folks in the room. It's similar to the other projects that we talked about earlier, right? Like we have a unique role that we can play as a convener of people that sort of exist within Metro. And that's what we're trying to do here as well. And then just, policy-wise, things that we can do to strengthen things of code of conduct for our board and commission members. What happens when you see something like we've described at the benefit board meeting, for example, that, doesn't seem appropriate that you would expect, right? So what are sort of the policy interventions that we can think of for this space as well, whether that's education or non-discrimination pledges or things like that. So those are conversations that we've been engaging in the last couple of months especially, but that we want to deepen in the year ahead. I will move on to priority project number 3, unless someone tells me to stop. So y'all are aware that we did our inclusivics report earlier this year, and that focused on Metro general government, so departments not including MNPS. And so we want to do the same thing for MNPS. We got a lot of good feedback and usage from inclusivics, and I think that it was an important report to put out, especially as, again, we're preparing for this leadership change that our city is about to go through. And so the schedule that we're sort of thinking about is inclusivics for general government 1 year, and the following year is for metro schools, and then so an alternating schedule of when we update the data and the reports. So we are having those conversations about accessing data for MNPS so we can do something similar. It's a little harder to access than the publicly available payroll data that was, available at our fingertips for the other inclusivics report. So those are our 2 sort of research and policy priority areas that we are forecasting for the year ahead. Of course, things always come up, policies that come down through the mayor's office or the council, but these are sort of our planned activities. All right, our next core service area out of 4 is community engagement. So again, we list our routine, ongoing activities in this area, and then for priority activities, what we've identified is we don't have a cute name for it yet, but some sort of a civic engagement leadership training. Again, we know that lots of different community groups are doing sort of, civics 101, for lack of a better word, sort of training courses, leadership cohorts for how you interact with Metro, how you try to create change, what are the avenues for doing that. We're not trying to duplicate what anyone else is doing, but we know there's just such a huge need for this. And so we want to provide something to the networks that we exist in with the commission. And so that might look like developing some curriculum and doing a pilot cohort this fall, making tweaks to it, and then recruiting for maybe a spring cohort. That might be something like an 8-week class once a week for 2 hours that will have lots of different guest speakers, whether they're from Metro or from community organizations, really focus sort of on those this is what you need to know about Metro. These are different theories of change for how you might want to approach trying to make the changes that you want to see in our city. And we think that especially with the team that we have put together on staff, that we could do this really well, given the experiences that we have. So we're excited about this. And this is actually also what got funded in our budget of our long list of, I think, a dozen things that we said we want to do. This is the one that they picked and said, y'all go do that. So there was something that made this attractive to the administration as well. Priority area number 5 is our ongoing community events, right? So those are always a priority to continue to show up with our community partners who have our annual events. We're preparing right now for Celebrate Nashville. Earlier in the spring, many of y'all came to Music City Iftar. We have about a dozen events that we partner on, co-host, just show up and support the day of. And so we just sort of calendar those out so that, again, people can sort of create a understanding of the work that we're involved in.
And there's about another dozen that we're expected to at least show up at.
We're on our last core service area, which is special projects. So everything that doesn't fit into the first 3. And so a lot of these you've already heard about before, and they will continue to be priorities in the year ahead. So number 6 is the effort to purchase the Morris Memorial Building and to convert and transform that into a Civil Rights African American History Museum, as well as Metro office spaces. Has everybody heard about this? Okay. I saw one look of surprise. So, David, do you want to say anything about this?
Okay, the one look of surprise is there, so that person has not heard about it. Who's? Commissioner Charlton. Well, and you're in a safe space, Commissioner. For a number of years, there's been a move to establish the African American Museum. And out of that, Mayor Briley actually formed a committee to look at that through purchasing the Morris Memorial Building, which is the only building downtown that was built by the Black architectural firm McKissick and McKissick. And that building has been for sale. That group kind of dissipated when the administration changed, and there have been various moves from community organizations around bringing that up. We submitted in our budget in the capital improvements asking Metro to purchase the building. Well, they declined, but because it was submitted in our budget, during the budget process, Councilwoman Sulfat Zora submitted a amendment to the mayoral budget for the purchase, and it was denied. And but since then, others have made commitments toward that end. Again, we won't be in any operating ability. We're not going to make the museum. We're not museum folks, but to help facilitate this process of establishing a African American museum here in Nashville to protect that part of the history, which has not and does not get told.
Thank you.
So that will remain an ongoing priority until it's done. Number 7 is Town Hall Pass, which Davey described earlier, and the second number 7, which should be in number 8, is the Feedback Nashville project, which we also talked about earlier. And so that's the end of our core service areas and our priority activities within them. So that is our best effort at sort of forecasting the planned work that we will engage in the next year. And y'all know our team, but we'll end with a little bit of a, pictures, bio sort of thing. Again, in the spirit and intention of establishing relationships with the new folks who are coming into our council, mayor's office, and other relevant roles. And so that's everything. And then if there are other general comments, I'm just going to put this slide on the background for that. Again, we do the best that we can to project what we're planning to do. And then we wanted to describe these impact areas so that if something else comes up, we sort of have a framework so that we can justify this is how it fits within our mission and the work that we have done, even if we don't have an active project on, for example, license plate readers. Y'all know that's something that we've been talking about, even though it's not a priority area. So that's how we are planning to describe who we are as a commission, what we do, how we can be a resource. And we've got this in a document. It's trying to be very visual, not super overwhelming. And that's our plan. So if you have any other questions or comments or what's missing. I know what's missing. I need to include information about y'all. I am so sorry. You will be, your names and information about the commission as well will be here, of course. Probably with a little bit of information about how the commissioners have been selected and what the terms are and such.
So she's really asking you, would you submit a short bio of yourself that we can edit for length and clarity and your best mugshot.
And submit it.
You can send that to crystal.cockrell@nashville.gov. And if I can add on the end of this, oh, you were getting ready to say something? Go ahead. I just want to add on the end of this that this will ultimately result in a longer strategic plan to maybe span 5 years. But even as we work out what those things are, we still have to do work, or there are things that come up that are taking our time now. So it's not that from the executive committee meeting that we did not get the buckets. So hopefully the buckets sound familiar around the work that we're trying to focus on. And again, it's just taking us more time to work that out in a longer 3 to 5 year of what that looks like.
When do you need that information from us by?
What is today? I mean, the new council will take office in October. I mean, they'll be sworn in earlier, but September's sort of well, no. So we're hoping, good question. I should have been
End of
prepared for this.
August.
September 2021 and 22, or around there, is the training for the new council. And so we've requested a short agenda item on there. And so we'll definitely want to finalize this by mid-September. So 2 weeks.
Thank you. This was great, and you always enlightening me with every time you do a presentation. What I want to bring up to, just bring to the forefront is the work that you did on inclusive civics. And I think when we look at the wages that are paid in Metro and how jobs are vetted and who gets those jobs and where the areas they're coming from, it affects everything else in Metro. So I don't know how you're prioritizing this, what we work on first, second, or third. I know you put it in, bullet points and everything, but what I would like to say is that the number of people that I've talked to since that presentation, they are keenly aware, but I think we need to be more aggressive in getting that information out, because it would also change how we look at who we put on boards, because that comes from the leadership in Metro, and like-minded people usually refer like-minded people. And if you're having to work 2 jobs, you work in Metro all day, and then in order to make ends meet, you got to go drive Uber for the rest of the day. You're not going to be able to serve on a board. You're not going to be able to show up for a meeting that's really important for you. This meeting is for you. We are here for you, but you can't participate in these types of endeavors because your wage and your earnings won't allow you to do that. So I think we definitely got to do more about talking about the amount of money that folks are making and who's making it, what color they look like making it, and what gender they are. And I think that will help us in some of the other areas that we're dealing with. And that's also for business owners as well. Too many projects come through Metro, and you can always guarantee who's going to get the jobs. So that's my thought on that.
And the Inclusivics report has gotten a lot of pub. We heard it even during the campaign of the election and at large. Folks often quoted it. We've met with HR. We began conversations with them, who they also are involved in the policies and procedures that determine the hiring. They've been very open to our conversations. I think they see it. And so we're trying to build that relationship so we can come alongside them. Out of the finance office, Andrea Blackman, we've met with her more than once, and we've talked about ways in which we can join forces with them. Again, I think that the MHRC is in a unique position in that we stand outside of that bureaucracy, in that the numbers are the numbers, And I believe that the numbers are a result of public policy.
So to follow up on that, is getting Metro and MNPS to pay a living wage to all of its employees within our bucket?
Well, I think you asked a question that depend on where it's said. There are multiple answers to that. One is, what is the current living wage? If you recall from the mayor's budget and the reclassification of a lot of individuals, they made an effort toward a living wage. And I forget what that was.
So Metro uses the MIT living wage calculator, which is about $18.50 per hour in Nashville. However, I don't know if this is maybe Erwin what you're getting at. We know that there are other calculators for living wages, some that do have a higher wage for Nashville. And so that's definitely a Metro uses the MIT living wage calculator. United Way is another agency that uses what they call an ALICE wage, which stands for Asset Limited Income Constraint Employed Individuals, that thinks of living wage as a spectrum. So survival wages at the bottom to stability living wages, right? And so it's a much more flexible or realistic, I would say realistic, not flexible, measure of that. And we know that there are holes and gaps in who qualifies for the living wage floor that Metro does have. We know that part-time employees are an exception to the wage floor that we have for Metro. I mean, we know that contractors are a huge area that it's a lot harder to think about this, but there's still people who are receiving pay from Metro public funds. So that's a sort of different thing to tackle. But yeah, we can definitely sort of problematize this idea of living wage and are we meeting it and who is not meeting it. I've done just a, informal analysis with the data that I do have. And because we're going to be doing MNPS inclusivics, we know that our school support staff are among our lowest paid employees. And if we use the United Way living wage calculator, I think when I looked a few months ago, it was about 1,100 employees that are not making the survival living wage. And so I think the way that we continue to do this and talk about it and what we're recommending is really important. And these relationships that we want to be building with the folks in HR and in the mayor's office and the budget process for how we can use inclusivics as data to try to support all workers in Nashville.
I was gonna add that.
I have two questions, one internal, one external. So the first one, the external question is, we talked about there's an orientation for council and how we're trying to get a little bit of FaceTime there. Is there an orientation for the new mayor, and can we get some FaceTime there as well? Because I think it'd be worth it, or is it all together?
No, it'll be separate. That's been part of the commission, is that when a new mayor comes in, you go through the process of requesting a meeting.
Great.
So that is what we will be doing.
And then my internal question, which I'm assuming that what we are seeing is what we are hoping to be a little less, obviously, but public facing, so that when people ask, what is MHRC, we have this. And so I think my question is, this is a lot for 6 staff to take on. And so my biggest, I think something that I'm a little bit nervous about is just the burnout of staff, just to be real. This is a lot to carry. And obviously, we only saw the timeline of one project. And so my recommendation on a recorded public thing here is to make sure that we're layering work plans so that it's sustainable and not, that all staff aren't trying to carry a bunch of big rocks. And so just making sure that as we have these priorities laid out, that our calendars, overlap in a way that people are able to pick up and drop off, and still try and accomplish these goals. But just to name that, like, this is a very bold vision, and I am humbled and honored to sit on a commission that is trying to accomplish something like this, but also just being realistic with what we can do with 6 staff.
I appreciate that, but I can assure you that I work with a group of people that can't drive them like cattle. That's not going to happen. But we categorized how we got down to this. And again, as I said, I'm happy to work with the individuals that I am because these are issues that they're committed to. So help us as we begin this next process of growing our staff so that we can do justice by these things.
And I think that was my next point, is that, like, I think that there's a real need for growth of staff, and that's something that we should continue to advocate for. And then again, like, just making sure that even if we're not able to, I'll be the first to say I've not been able to make it to every meeting and things, but I'm committed to be part of a working commission to help the staff lift something like this. Like, just naming that the staff isn't alone in this. It's not just 6 staff, that we're all here and to lean on us when needed.
Oh, I was gonna add that, I guess I don't know if you've already met with them. I know United Ways collaborates with the Nashville Living Wage organization and the advisory board and committee. But I know they have a particular methodology that we could maybe invite them to a Metro Human Relations Commission meeting to maybe present, or if you just want to have a one-on-one kind of conversation with them to kind of learn more. But definitely a group to check out. And then the other thing was piggybacking off of what Pratik has mentioned, and this is probably going to add even more stress, but I was just kind of wondering what the sort of comms plan is, especially when it comes to making sure that this information is shared with the community, whether that's really kind of upgrading our socials and making sure that we're very intentional about that, and then seeing how we can get this information to the community. And I know I might be stepping into your territory, Kathy, right now, but I think how are we making it more accessible? Is there a newsletter? But I also know that comms is always from speaking from a nonprofit perspective, it's always the hardest thing. So I know that's another daunting task.
Does anyone want
Kat,
to
do
answer?
you want to just...
So thank you for that, Kosar. So one of the things that we've been working on is just implementing a communications calendar for our team. We're starting to put in there all the things and all the invitations that we're getting as far as community engagement events go, or big stuff that's happening with us, so that we can keep track of what's happening. So far, we've been working mostly on our press releases and what it means to grow relationships with media, so that we can have a better outreach in that sense. So we've been cleaning up our media list and making sure that every time we're sending out a press release, that's accurate and that it's going to the people that it needs to reach. But yes, I absolutely appreciate you bringing that up. I think a newsletter and being able to summarize all of this work is something that we're looking forward to in the future. Right now, as Ashley mentioned, we're super focused on creating the work plan so that it's very clear what steps we're taking and how we can make sure that this is happening in the most effective way. And so, I think that one part that may be missing, or not missing, but it's the emerging or the rapid response that we have to do. Oftentimes that's what's been really hard for us to plan for. So we're setting up the foundations for us to be able to say, okay, this is what happens when there's a rapid response thing that we have to jump into, or this is how we can talk about regularly scheduled programming. I hope that's a sufficient response.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, staffer. Oh, yes, did you have a question? Go for it.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing to add, and maybe this will be on the more detailed version of the plan, is if there are any metrics around any of the initiatives, how much more, how less, in terms of all these initiatives, just so that we can track what success looks like for each one of these.
And yes, and that will be with the official strategic plan.
Okay.
all of those measurements. But again, our problem is 6 people. Just today, I've had to wipe off my whole day up until this point just to respond to something that has taken me several hours to put together. So this day is shot, and that just stacks up on stuff that we have to do. And so, but no, you're exactly right. And Ashley was trying to frame this as here's just to give you a bit of an idea of what we're working on. But yes, those outcomes, those metrics, what does success mean? What does it look like? I was just thinking about this living wage thing of how would MHRC settle themselves in that. And that's going to be a discussion of ultimately the administration chooses what metrics that they're going to use, and that's well within their right, and that's actually their responsibility to do. So then how do we, through building relationships, or get asked into the room, or even get to weigh in on that? Because from the MIT to the United Way or whatever, that's a significant amount of money. And so how do you do that? How do you do that? Another example, there's this new group, Imagine Nashville. I was asked to sit on that. So that's part of the whole thing. So again, we do hope to get this thing finalized and get it to you with all of those things, because they are the way that we know when we've won and when we've lost too.
Excellent. And just on that point, it's for a mayor, it would be great to start with the metric that they want to start with so they can brag about it later. If they choose one and then need to report on another, it'll make them look worse, right? So I think as part of this orientation, if we get in there, like if they're going to switch to survival wages instead of, because MITT is not serving anyone, because that's exactly why you have to Uber. It's because those wages aren't actually working, so calling them living. So if whoever comes in says, actually, we're switching and we're going to measure our own progress as an administration from that floor, I think that's when it gets to be done. Because if it happens 2 years later, you're going to look way worse because you're changing the numbers. You know what I mean? Okay. Excellent discussion. Excellent. I'm so grateful to you all. We've been pushing them and the XCOM to get this done, and they've been working so hard. Like the example David gave you, there have been so many curveballs thrown at us, every meeting. So to get regular scheduled work, trudge along that is really hard, I think, for a team that's always reacting. I mean, we're kind of the dignity monitor of the city. You know what I mean? And that was the thing that was missing for me. So it's like, even if we did a pie chart, just to be realistic, like, yes, 40% or 50% of our time will go to these projects, but a big chunk of our time actually goes to dignity monitoring, or whatever you call it. Because I feel like that's what we're on the phone about all the time. So, and thankfully, we have a team that really takes that role very seriously. And we have a set of commissioners that take that really seriously. So that's great. Present to the fact that it's 5:15 or something, I'm happy to move forward. Oh, great. Why did it? Oh, this was my computer was way forward. Okay. Old business. I don't see anything. Public comments. I don't see anyone.
Let me ask Matthew, do we need to develop a statement? I know that other boards and commissions read a statement.
I did circulate a memo that had some of Metro Legal's recommendations for adopting a public comment policy. There was recently a new law that went into effect on July 1st, which now requires public comment at all open meetings. As I understand, I think the Human Relations Commission was doing public comment in the past, so that's, but it is a requirement by law now, and so Metro Legal has put together a memo with just some recommendations regarding the recommended policies and procedures around public comment. So if the commission wants to take that up at a later meeting to develop some rules around governing the public comment, you all can do that.
want to ask, by the way, there's nothing wrong with Ubering.
Right.
Right.
No. No.
But I want to ask you what you just said about you were asked to sit on, could you clarify what you meant by that statement?
Imagine
When-
Nashville.
Yeah, so that I can have it
But
clear in my
Imagine
head what you were,
Nashville is
what
kind
you
of
mean.
like, years ago, what was it called? Nashville Next or something? And ultimately, they put out this master plan about development of the city for the next 20, 25 years. And this group actually has a few of the members from Nashville Next that have begun meeting on this, Imagine Nashville as another addition to that. And I can't say, or did they ask me because I'm the ED of MHRC? I think possibly so. And so our involvement in that, and I mean, just some of my fellow colleagues here also have personal involvements in other issues that fall into what MHRC does. So my participation in that, I think, is needed. I don't know about the impact, but it is needed to be in the room. And I only say that as this is something else that when I sign on to that, I commit to that and all of what that means.
Great. So we just have one announcement. I don't know about the COB report.
What is the date? The Community Oversight Board, or MNCO is the department name, recently released a use of force report that we can send with the follow-up materials, and they have a public meeting about it on August 24th. I think that's a Thursday. It's at the East Park Community Center, and they asked us to let all of you know. They're really looking for people to read the report, think about what questions you have, what stands out to you, and just go and share those comments, ask those questions. With everything that's going on, we just want to make sure that people see it and that we don't miss this opportunity to provide formal feedback on it. So the meeting is being run by MNCO staff, and we'll send the info to y'all.
I have a quick announcement. I know I announce this every year, but Turk is hosting their international night market, which is a big food event at their office, and tickets sell out quickly. So thank you. So if you just look up international, NASH, like Nashville, if you look that up, tickets will be online and you can grab what you want, but they sell out really quickly. So that's why I wanted to announce it early in August. The event is on September 23rd, Saturday, September 23rd.
So we don't have a hookup in you.
I was just gonna say,
I am,
These
let me be
coveted
clear.
tickets,
I'm
could you-
going to be on vacation this week, but Kosar also put him on the hot seat. So
I can ask the folks organizing the event about it. So stay tuned.
Awesome. And thanks for coming on vacation to the meeting, Pratik. Okay, great. Are we good? Because I can take a motion to adjourn. Yes.
My apologies for having to leave during your presentation.
motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Great. If there are no abstentions and no one against, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.